All right, welcome back to the channel. So in this video, we're going to talk about Terence Crawford. We're going to talk about Jaron Ennis and Shawn Porter. The young up-and-coming prospect is really laid into Terence Crawford and politely laid into Terence Crawford and Shawn Porter and said, look, man, I don't care what those dudes do. I can beat both of them. And specifically, he says something about Terence Crawford that I think might be true. But let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. So Terence Crawford and Shawn Porter are going to be fighting each other coming in November. I think it's the biggest welterweight fight remaining for the rest of the year, so there should be a lot of focus on it. And so a lot of people are getting interviewed and asking what their thoughts on it are about it. Some people think Terence Crawford is going to win. Some people think that Shawn Porter is going to win. Some people don't know, but when they asked Jaron Ennis was kind of circumspect about who he thought was going to win, but he pretty much said that he believes that he would beat both of them and that he's ready to be the top guy in the welterweight division right now. Specifically about Terence Crawford, you know, he says, look, man, I think that I'm better at everything than Terence Crawford is. And that's something that I've been saying, you know, for a while. Because if you look at the way that Terence Crawford fights and you look at the way that Jaron Ennis fights, the young fighter out of Philadelphia, you'll see a lot of comparisons between the two, a lot of similarities between the two of them. And I do believe that pretty much everything Terence Crawford has that Jaron Ennis, at least everything that I've seen Terence Crawford show and everything that I've seen from Jaron Ennis, I think that's a fair statement. From the fact that they're both very, like Jaron Ennis will point out the fact that he's bigger than Terence Crawford. He's stronger than Terence Crawford. He hits harder than Terence Crawford, even though I can't say for sure whether or not he hits harder than Terence Crawford, because Terence Crawford hits very, very hard. He said his defense is better than Terence Crawford, and just all of the things that Terence Crawford does, he believes that he does better. And from a naked eye point of view, I think that that's probably right, man. But a lot of people are going to reject that offhand because of where Terence Crawford and Shawn Porter are in their careers versus where Jaron Ennis is in his career. But there are some times with certain young athletes that you really can see, you know, their potential, and you can see what they bring a lot earlier than other guys, you know, and that's throughout all the sports. It's like when I was young, you know, I remember when, you know, my older brother was a really big fan of the 76ers. He's a big fan of Julius Erving, who's a great, you know, Dr. J, who's a great basketball player. And when I was young, there was a guy, you know, Michael Jordan was coming up with the Bulls. And I was telling people just off the first season, I was like, Michael Jordan is better than him. And you just go back, you know, and hearing how many people were like, oh, no, that's not possible. No way, no way, no way. And then you just kind of see how things play out. And you see, man, you know, things do change over time. Things get, you know, just because a guy is the best right now doesn't mean there's somebody not somebody underneath him that's going to come up and show that he's better than them. And I think, you know, in the welterweight division, I think you're starting to see that, or in boxing, I think you're starting to see that, you know, with a lot of the prospects that are out there that are really kind of coming to their own. There's a guy in the heavyweight division, Jaron Ennis, and I think should be coming into his own in the heavyweight division. And I think going to wind up beating a lot of people that people don't think that he can beat, because, you know, you don't hear a lot about him and you've not seen what he's, you know, everything he's been able to do. But if you watch the fights that are out there with him, you can see that this guy is one of the most well-rounded and natural, smooth heavyweights that there are, you know, in the game. And eventually I think that he probably is going to wind up being one of the top guys, you know, one of the top guys in the welterweight division. You know, one of the things that is really good about boxing, or I find fun about boxing, is watching the prospects and watching how those guys come up throughout their career, right? 2 years ago, nobody would have thought that Teofimo Lopez, or very few people would have thought that Teofimo Lopez could beat Vasily Lomachenko. I mean, Teofimo Lopez is a good up-and-coming fighter. You know, he's got, you know, a knockout puncher, but, you know, they wouldn't have said, okay, yeah, within that short amount of time that, you know, that he would be able to beat Vasily Lomachenko. While I was looking at the progression of him, and I was like, yeah, I think he probably could within a couple of years, because I'm telling you, you know, fighters, you know, once you reach that peak, you wind up getting, you know, you start coming downhill and the other guy is coming uphill. You know, fighters will get better than other fighters. It's just hard to see real time. So I know that there's a lot of people that are not going to appreciate what Jaron Ennis had to say. And he didn't just say it about Terence Crawford. He also said it about Shawn Porter, and believing that he can, that he would be able to beat Shawn Porter as well. Specifically, what he said he would do with Shawn Porter is, that he would just use the jab, keep him on the outside, really just kind of pick his shots. And he thinks that would win, that would win him the fight. I'm telling you that if Jaron Ennis, the ultimate matchup for me with Jaron Ennis, though, isn't going to be these guys. I don't think you're going to ever see in the ring with Jaron. You're going to see Terence Crawford in the ring with Jaron Ennis. I don't think you're going to see Errol Spence or Shawn Porter. That group of welterweights or 140-pound welterweights in there with Jaron Ennis, because Jaron Ennis, I don't think he's over 23 years old, and those guys are all up in their 30s or close to that. Most of them are in their 30s. Some of them are close to their 30s, but like Josh Taylor, for example, who's down there at 140 pounds. I mean, people think of him as a newcomer, and he is to the extent that he's getting these belts, but he's about 29 years old or pushing 30 years old. He's not nearly as young as Jaron Ennis. Well, I think where we're going to see Jaron Ennis is you'll see him with that crop of fighters that are coming up, moving up to the welterweight division, or for him moving up to the middleweight division. Guys like Rashidi Ellis. Guys like Virgil Ortiz, maybe Teofimo Lopez, if Teofimo Lopez gets to 147 pounds, by that time. So, while Jaron Ennis is saying that he can do everything better than Terence Crawford, and I do think that from just my, naked eye test, I do think that he can do everything that Terence Crawford can do, especially at that welterweight division, because of the size, because of the length, and honestly, man, because because he also gets the benefit from having seen Terence Crawford fight, right? There's something to that, kind of like Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, where Kobe Bryant got to pattern his game a lot off of Michael Jordan, because he saw what worked when Michael Jordan did it, and he had the athletic ability and all that to do it. I think they could see that with Jaron Ennis, especially when it comes to, changing stances and fighting in the southpaw orthodox stance. What I've noticed out of Jaron Ennis is that he's a little bit, more, he does it on offense and defense, where he can beat you. He can beat a guy and be very aggressive in the southpaw stance, where Terence Crawford uses the southpaw stance primarily defensively. If he catches you with something out of the southpaw stance, like really gets a chance to tee off on you from the southpaw stance, he will. But then he'll really attack and do most of his aggressive work in, the orthodox stance. But where a guy like Jaron Ennis really can do it both ways, man. And I think he's also, been fighting, from a very early age like that. And I think that you see it in the way that he's approaching his professional fights. But, I don't think that this is any disrespect to Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford is an excellent fighter, but I personally think that Jaron Ennis has the potential to be a very, very special fighter, and be able to dominate the 147, 154, and 160 pound divisions. There's some people that say that there's some younger guys out there like Gary Antoine Russell, who beat him in the amateurs, that they say are on par with him. But all in all, I look forward to seeing what happens with it. I love the fact that Jaron Ennis is willing to say these things and step out there and talk about how good he is, because if he doesn't, more than likely the media isn't going to do it for him. But anyway, you let me know what you think in the comment section. And this is no slight on Terence Crawford or Shawn Porter, but I do think that this guy Jaron Ennis is a very, very special fighter. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.